Hi, and welcome to Quantum Astrology with Julie Simmons. That's me. Today I thought I'd like to tell you about why I call this the Quantum Astrology Show, what exactly I mean. There's an article you can read at my website if you'd like, or you can just listen to me tell you. Let me say right off the bat that my understanding of the word quantum is I'm not like a quantum physicist. I have a very popular knowledge of what the word quantum means. And I use it as a metaphor or an image to help me understand the world I live in, which seems to have gone into the quantum realm. So we'll just set that aside for a moment. We'll come back to it. Astrology, one of the big questions of astrology is about an astrologer's ability to predict the future. And this happens successfully more often than you would think if you're not an astrologer. I'm always delighted when people tell me that I told them exactly what was going to happen and I've been spot on. I think I probably am as impressed as they are when I get it right. Because that's not really why I do astrology, right? In truth, I believe deeply that our past is our fate. Our fate is our past. It's the thing, it's done, that's true, and it may exist only in our memory and certainly in the memory of our body. And our mind, but it can't be changed. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. For most of us, we go about our business in the day, and we don't think a whole lot about our past. But our actions are often based on the experiences that we had in the past unconsciously. So when I think of fate as who your parents were, what country you were born in, your genetic inheritance. When I think of destiny, I think we create destiny. Destiny is more like the future, right? So we create our destiny, and we would like to feel that we're the masters of creating that destiny, but many of us notice that we just can't seem to have a level of control that our conscious mind would think. And that's because the power of the conditioning of the past is so strong that it's hard to break, right? So it's the only thing that's really happening ever is this moment, this present moment. And the present moment, when it's informed by our unconscious relationship to the past conditioning, just simply replicates the past over and over again. I think we've all had this experience, or we all know that this is possible. The notion that the present is the only reality that there really is sort of like mystical belief 101, right? It's something that you kind of have to accept because it's true. And how long the present moment lasts, it might be something like how many angels can stand on the head of a pin, and it might be that the present is only 12 and a half seconds long, and that's it. Anything that happened 12 and a half seconds ago, the mind stores as a memory, as the past. It's certainly something to think about. So what limits our ability to live out the future according to our conscious desires is the power of our past conditioning. It's that simple. Not to mention the incredible, there's our individual past and, how my mother treated me when I was little, but there's also the past of our culture and our planet and, geology, not to mention, whatever country you live in and its past. So all those pasts really affect our past as individuals, and our desire is to be awake enough in the moment so that we can choose more or less the direction we want to go in the future. So an astrological chart is an awesome description of your fate. It really tells you how you're conditioned and how you will perceive everything that happens to you inside that conditioning. So I think that's a really important thing to know when you're considering astrology and the uses of astrology. And I think that the greatest value in consulting an astrologer is often the way in which we can see a person's fate. Because if that person whose fate we're seeing is willing to hear how it's constructed, they can become more aware, and then the reading is an incredibly useful tool for freeing up the choices that you make and opening up greater possibilities. So most of us are unconsciously aimed at a future that our past has predetermined. So I'll give you an example. Let's say A person comes to me and he or she has a lot of planets in the 5th house, which is the house of creativity. And I see that some of those planets are very difficult. So I know that this person is abundantly creative, but very afraid that if they express themselves creatively, and it's not right, that they'll be shamed or humiliated, or they'll die of embarrassment or something. So they don't, they know this person knows he or she is creative but doesn't express it. So when I can explain that astrologically in that moment of the astrology chart reading, then the person can say, oh, so then my fear of being creative isn't something I should let keep me from being creative. I'm going to make that painting, or I'm going to sing that song, or I'm going to dance that dance. Because otherwise you feel somehow like, life is just passing you by and you're not getting it. So when I, as an astrologer, can show a person in that moment of astrology what the pattern says, it has a real kind of power to it that's very wonderful. And, that's about as good as it gets in the free will department. That's about as much free will as we get to have. So all humans spend a tremendous amount of time in the if-only frame of mind. But I think, in truth, there are no accidents. Everything that happens, as soon as it happens, maybe after it's 12.5 seconds old, our mind tries to make meaning of it. That's what the nature of the human mind is, that we're constantly meaning-seeking beings. And we do that so that we can understand our experience in some kind of context. But until you had that accident, you potentially might not have had that accident. That's why we live in so much if-onlys. If only I hadn't, done that or chosen that or married that guy. So fate is really your past, and the more awake you are in the present, the more agency you have over what you do with that conditioning. So now let's talk about the quantum reality again, and how that fits in with all this astrology. So when I'm doing a reading, I think of what I'm doing as insights. I'm literally seeing into the person whose chart I'm reading, and that's why I call my monthly predictions, so to speak, insights, not predictions. So my sense is that I'm dealing in waves of energy. I'm reading energy, I'm looking at symbols, and I'm having images, and then I'm speaking it. So my quantum notion, the big idea, is that when I speak what I'm feeling or sensing or seeing, that's the wave, and when I actually say it, that becomes the particle, that becomes the condensed energy. So it's an information event where the particle of my image where the wave, of my image becomes the particle of how the other person hears it. The image of energy condensing into matter is a perfect analogy for the power of words and the way that they're used in astrology, also the way they're used in poetry and other forms of communication, but astrology for sure. So our words convey a wisdom or a description for someone that translates into a way that that person can actually live their life, or a way that they can adjust their life so they can live it more comfortably. So astrology offers guidance. Astrologers interpret or translate pictures, which are planetary alignments, into words. And I'm often struck just before I start a reading by the absolute absurdity of thinking that I can do a reading for a complete stranger and tell them how they experience their life. But it never fails. It always works. 40 years later, I'm still amazed at how how it works, even with people where, I don't know anything about their generation, really. I don't have kids that age. I'm not a kid anymore. It's still, the symbols speak so powerfully in terms of human experience. So I experience each reading as a quantum leap from my insight to the information that I'm giving the other person. So the next time you're wondering why exactly I call this quantum astrology, think about the magic of the ability to change the nature of reality with words, through words and images. Think about the gap between the words an astrologer speaks and the uses a client makes of those words. And when I was first starting out, I had a friend who used to say, when I would do a reading for her, from your mouth to God's ear. So maybe that's really the quantum leap. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, bye.